Welcome to the video on installing Velociraptor clients. So we've already installed the server. This is the second part where we will be installing the clients. All right, so at this point, we have the Velociraptor server installed. We can access it. I'm actually on my Windows 11 VM right now, but I'm accessing the AllSafe VLAN and the Velociraptor server. So now what we want to do is to install our clients on our Windows devices so that we can call back. So to do that, we need two things. First, we need the client YAML, and we can get to that just by selecting the Home button and looking under Current Orgs. And here we see the client root config YAML. We can just click that and you see that it's downloading. We can go to our downloads folder to make sure. And what we want to do to make sure that it is configured for ours is we can right click and open it with Notepad. And what we want to do is to make sure that it references 10.0.2.3 at port 8. And it does. That is the IP address of our server. So of course, our client configuration file has to be able to reference the server. So we want that. The second thing that we need to download, and you can use the link that's in the walkthrough, but what we need to do now is to download the binary for Velociraptor. And we want the Windows version. And to make it easiest, let's do the Windows ESI. Let's make sure it is Velociraptor version 7.5.6. So we can just click that. And we see that is downloading. Now this may be an unverified file, so we need to make sure that we can keep this. And now it's completed. So what we can do at this point is minimize our web browser for now. Let's go to our downloads folder. And this is going to seem really easy. What we're going to do is just double click this to run it. We will, of course, have to log in as administrator. And this is a network administrator. And because it's an MSI folder or file, it installs itself. But we're not done yet because we don't have our configuration with Velociraptor at this point. So we want to go to our C drive and then program files. And we want to look for Velociraptor. And there Velociraptor is. We can open it. We will need to probably log in again as administrator. Now we see Velociraptor and we see this write back file, but we see this already has a config file. Now this is not our config file. This is the one that comes with it. In fact, if we looked at it in Notepad, just like we did our other config file, we see it's not a real config file. It even says it's an invalid config file. So what we're going to do is we're just going to delete that. And then we're going to go back to our Windows or our downloads. And we are going to right click the correct config file. And now we want to go back and paste it into this folder. Let's modify that. Let's go to rename. And we just want it to be client.config file. Then go back to the dashboard and select the magnifying glass. And now you see we have our client has shown up. It is this desktop. So now we have one successful client that is calling back to Velociraptor. So the key is to make sure that config file is the same name as the original config file. So to go ahead and deploy the client to our other 2 Windows devices, we'll go to the other virtual machine. We'll select Win11.2, go down to the console, Spice. All right, we'll log in. So the easiest way to do this is with the browser. Again, what we can do is just go to our walkthrough, get that URL to the Velociraptor downloads page, paste it, go to the Velociraptor downloads page, scroll down to the Windows MSI. Let's download that. And again, we're going to have to select to keep it, and then hit this drop down that says keep anyway. And now we want to get that config file, the correct config file. So we'll go to https / and then the 10.0.2.3 port 8889. Now we can log into the console. There's other ways we can move this file, but this is just easy since we only got 3 machines. Log into, at this point, remember you're logging into Velociraptor, not anything to do with this particular Windows machine. Hit the home key, look for current org, and download the config file. Now let's go to our downloads folder. What we want to do is let's go ahead and change the name of this up front. So it's just client. It should just be config client.config.yaml. So we want to just run the MSI by just double clicking it. It's going to hit us up to log in as administrator, which is fine. And then provide the password. And while that is installing, I'm going to go ahead and copy this file. Looks like the install is complete, so we can go again. We're going to the C drive, to program files, look for Velociraptor. We will have to log in again as administrator. Let's paste this file, and it's going, well, there's already a file there with the name. That's good. We want it to replace the file in the destination. Now we've done that. So now what we want to do is go back to our dashboard here at Velociraptor. And we hit the magnifying glass. Now you see we have 2 clients. So the last thing that we want to do is to go ahead and install the same thing on our Windows server. But there's probably an easier way to do this. Generally, it's not good practice to open a browser on a server, so I'll show you how we're going to do it. Remember, we created a shared folder when we set up our Active Directory. So what we're going to do is we'll go to our Windows VM. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go down to network, and this is the name of our server. So I'm just going to double click it. You see we have some shared assets there. let's just copy. We'll open up another File Explorer. Let's just go to our downloads. And let's move both the Velociraptor binary. We may have to put it in the Steel Mountain directory. But let's move the Velociraptor binary to it. And let's move this config file. And we can go ahead and change the name of that config file again. But you see, we're in that Steel Mountain folder, which is a network share. We're still in our Windows VM. What I want to do now is I'll minimize that. And now let's go to our domain controller. Of course, we'll have to log in. All right, let's open File Explorer. Steel Mountain, and there's our two files that we just put in there. So I'm going to copy those, so I'm not going to execute them from our shared file, but we can execute them really anywhere inside our server. So let's just put it in Documents. I'll paste it. Now remember, what we're doing is all we want to do is execute that MSI, which is going to install Velociraptor. Once we've done that, we want to right click, copy the client config.yaml, and let's go to our C drive, go to Program Files, go to Velociraptor, and we just want to paste, and we want to replace the one that's in there, because remember, that's not a legitimate config. It's there. We can refresh. We really don't have to do anything, except now we want to go back to our Velociraptor dashboard. Okay, that's still the domain controller. We'll go to our Windows machine. I want to bring the browser back up. And if I hit the magnifying glass, now you see we have 3 clients. That is the server and our 2 desktop clients. So now we have installed Velociraptor on the server, and we have Velociraptor on clients or agents on all 3 systems. Now, one thing I want to do is go back and show you now on a Windows system, and right now we're still on a Windows 10. Let's look at services. And when you scroll down, you should see the Velociraptor service. You see it is there and it's running. So this pretty much completes this part, because the whole purpose of the lab videos is just to set the lab up. If you want to know how to use Velociraptor, obviously refer to the Velociraptor lessons that you'll get to in the course. And through the coming weeks and months, I may be adding some additional hands-on labs besides those that are already in the course. But this will get you started. You have an entire lab built right now. So this is your playground. Add more devices, take devices out, break things, figure it out, fix it, and do it again. So this completes this video, and this is the last video for the advanced lab setup for now. We'll be adding more stuff later.